time for the second practice for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series teams. Race number 7 in the chase for the NASCAR Sprint Cup. This Sunday, the AMP Energy 500. We're under an impound weekend, which means both practices will be today and then the qualify tomorrow. If you missed the first practice, fireworks just 7 minutes into the practice. Several cars involved. Sam Hornish, Clint Bowyer, the 99 of Carl Edwards, all receiving some damage. As you take another look, you see Bowyer spinning down onto the grass. Glad you're back with us here at Talladega on Halloween weekend, of course. We don't know who's responsible for scheduling a race at Talladega on Halloween weekend, but nonetheless, Steve Burns, Larry McReynolds, and Jeff Hammond. And Jeff, what is going to happen now? Because this is final practice. We talked about the impound weekend between first practice and second practice.
I'm going to hold my breath for another hour.
60
I'm going to
minutes.
start holding my breath because, again, we talked about the 77 car. He had to go to a backup. A lot of work had to be done on that 33 car, Clint Bowyer's. That's what you don't want. You want to make sure you try to pick yourself out a spot, if it's at all possible, Larry McReynolds, to run this practice session, keep your car safe, learn from it, and as quick as you possibly can, put it up on 4 jack stands.
I think there's no question of the 44 cars that we have here. I think we will see maybe some cars not even run this practice session, like Juan Pablo Montoya in the 42 car, and we may see packs like this of maybe about 8 to 12 to 14 cars. I'm not sure we'll see packs of the 25 cars like we saw at that first practice. I think a lot of people decided they had what they had when they unloaded, and here's the 33 car that was involved in that wreck. They spent that whole rest of that practice and this last 45 minutes repairing this 33 car, so they just want to go out there and make sure everything's still good, because that's the very car that finished 4th in the Daytona 500 back in February.
Well, the beginning of that first practice was scary, no pun intended, on Halloween weekend. Cars 3 wide, 4 wide down the backstretch. But things eventually sorted out and settled down.
But the thing is right now, Stephen, Larry kind of pointed it out. You can take a quick look here. Look what's happening here. This is very mannerly. This is the kind of pack and kind of racing that you can learn from, but at the same time, you don't have to feel like you're going to wreck every moment, because 4 wide, 3 wide, it gets crazy when that's going on. I mean, that's the main thing is that you just want to keep your nose clean and learn something. And Larry Mack, it's that 42 car on what? 4 jack stands.
I would be willing to bet even the race day checklist is on the side, because this is an impound race weekend. When these guys push their car through inspection to go qualify tomorrow, that's the only laps they'll make tomorrow. NASCAR will impound the cars, and you pretty much will race what you qualified for 500 miles on Sunday.
Juan Pablo Montoya trying to hang on in the chase for the 2009 Sprint Cup. Jimmy Johnson, you see him in the 48 mid-pack, comes in here with a 118-point lead over his teammate Mark Martin.
You take a look, Larry, there's just some guys that are making, I guess you'd be getting ready to make some qualifying runs. You see Jeff Burton, Paul Menard on back through there. I think I see Joe Nemechek's car, Jamie McMurray. I believe all these guys are getting ready to make qualifying attempts, including the 82, Scott Speed. Several of these cars have got to make their way into the race. One car will go home. We've got 44 cars here this weekend. 1 car will go home.
Well, let me ask you guys this, because this is one track where you start truly doesn't have that big of a determining factor on where you finish. So what is the priority in qualifying? Pit selection?
Well, I want to qualify up front, because I go back to the spring race. We had a wreck break out on lap 7 about 1/3 of the way through the pack. So, yeah, pit selection, we know how important that is week in and week out, but I still, without sacrificing my race setup, especially if I'm a top 35 guy, I still want to qualify up near the front. I'm not sure there's any safe place on this racetrack, but I want to take my chances out front.
Jeff, there's a lot of strategies to run this race. I've seen guys hang out in the back all day and then make a late charge, but I don't know that you really, if there is a safe place to run here.
You're right, Steve. I mean, that's the problem that we run into as we watch now. They are doing three wide. Take a look here as far as the troubles that happened here in Talladega in April. Jimmy Johnson's only DNF came here when he got caught up in the crash on lap 180. Mark Martin, Larry mentioned lap 7, he got caught up in that along with his teammate Jeff Gordon. So this place has wreaked havoc on our chase contenders, so they all know what can happen when they come in here, and everybody's trying to figure out what kind of strategy does it take. Being up front, being in the back, you know, finding somebody to hang out there with and just try to keep my nose clean. you know, there is no certain thing that's going to pay off because Jimmie Johnson hung around at the back. So did Carl Edwards. And when the checkered flag dropped, both of those guys have been wrecked.
Wendy Venturini.
Well, we ended that last practice session wondering who was going to stay out there for this practice, who was going to stay in the garage area. Well, the 42, as we mentioned, decided not to go out this practice session. The 14 of Tony Stewart in the garage, and I think he should be done. He was going to make one run, but the 48 right there, you see him deep in that pack right in the middle of that draft. They did plan to go out in this practice session, try some more things right before this practice session started. You heard the spotter come over the radio and warn Jimmie Johnson, deliver the message from NASCAR, warning these drivers about the draft. NASCAR was going to be policing more of the drafting in this practice session. They didn't like everything they saw that happened in the first practice session. I know there was a little bit of conversation about what happens here at Talladega and the drafts in these practice sessions. Sometimes these guys are learning a lot about these race cars, but as we saw in the first practice session, Steve, the cars were fishtailing right up on each other, which caused a big domino effect in that first practice. Everybody's trying to take it a little more easy this practice session, especially when NASCAR gives their warning.
Well, I think what she's saying, Wendy, is that they don't want to see a lot of bump drafting. And they also don't want to see these guys pushing each other through the corner. That's when you really usually get yourself in trouble. And we know they have the ability. We've seen them do it. But you're running the risk of taking somebody out of contention as far as making this race or either having their primary car destroyed because you make unnecessary moves or radical moves, a little bit like we saw the 88 do right there. That's what they're looking for, is they do not want to see guys wreck cars unnecessarily.
Larry Mack, I almost fell down when Wendy was talking. Do you know why?
Why is that?
Because my foot was stuck in your fruit syrup.
Know where you're going with that one.